you and I have talked about this in the past. It's really important for us to figure out what is a sustainable model for restaurants. And there's not just one. And so one thing that I'm trying to think through is how can a restaurant that is a center, i.e. provides more service, provides more activations, it's higher touch, because higher touch restaurants, maybe not the highest touch, but like that middle ground of high touch restaurants is, I personally think that it provides some of the best good for society from a personal relationship standpoint, but that is one of the hardest ones to operate because you're not getting the best margins. It takes still the same amount of effort to operate. And so I'm constantly trying to think through how can we make more money, honestly. And so how do we attach more things within our restaurant group, whether that's real estate, whether that's you doing some
vertical integration,
some product mix or some CPG, some other entertainment of some sort, something that people already associate with higher margin and attaching food and beverage to it. It's frustrating for restaurateurs, and it's detrimental to society how hard it can be.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest partner at Up Hospitality Partners, Sean Lyons. My man, Sean, are you feeling unstoppable today?
After this setup, I do. Jeez, first time I've ever been a part of the full shebang.
Dude, it's so this is a special recording for me today, man. This is a guy that I have grown to know since about 2018, I want to say.
Yeah.
Is when we really started to grow this relationship. Probably one of the most, if not the most, supportive individuals I've had on this journey along the way as a listener. I think there's two people that might know Restaurant Unstoppable podcast content better than I do. One is Jared Parisi, who is forced to listen to all my episodes. The other one is Sean Lyons, who has constantly been giving me feedback, been listening to the show, who shares the episodes with everybody on his team. And I knew this day was a matter of time, man. You just opened your third restaurant. We're here in Brentwood, just outside of Nashville. And I know what you're capable of in terms of the knowledge you deliver. So I know this is going to be good. I can't wait to dive into it. And it's honestly an honor to be here. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Well, this one I learned from my mentor in dance, and he would always say, give love.
Give love. How does that translate to you? Like when you hear that, what are you feeling? What are you thinking?
Well, like in the dance world, which is very similar when you're a business owner or just honestly a server when you approach a table, is you can walk in, you can feel judged, you can feel scared, you can feel intimidated, not ready because the focus is on you. But if you think give love, it's all about another person. So it kind of drops that pretense of this is about me and people are judging me. And when you flip it back on the other person, then the pressure drops and you can actually perform better. Yeah. It's just a matter of perspective change.
I love that, man. And it resonates with me right now. Honestly, when you think of the word hospitality, it's generosity, it's giving, it's warmth, it's putting out into the world, right? It's not about making it about you. It's not about taking in, it's about putting out. And then, just recently this year, I kind of made this commitment to kind of recenter and to reconnect with some old books that I read and to like really start to work on myself and to develop these routines and these habits. And one of my habits, my daily habits, is to have this mindset of just give, just exist to serve. Don't make it about you, make it about literally everybody else. And if I'm a natural born promoter, how do I just find the people that I love and promote the shit out of them and make it about going further together? So that idea of just giving love fucking resonates with me right now, man.
Well, the nice thing is about it is that you're never really failing, right? Like no matter what position you're in, if that's your motivation, then you're always moving forward. Right? Because you're always gonna naturally get something back from it. But like, again, you could lose all your money, you could lose all your companies, but at the end of the day, if you're giving and putting into everybody, those things will never.
We just got some coffee dropped off. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going, man.
Those like little tokens of love that you're giving to your employees, to the guests, to just anybody you come into contact with, nobody can take those away. So it feels like you're always growing versus like.
Yeah, it's a mindset of abundance too. So one of the things, back to this idea of getting to my morning routine and working on myself, when I meditate, the last thing I do when I meditate is I think of somebody. Oftentimes it's somebody that I think of as competition or somebody who I've had bad thoughts about, and I usually try to find something like that, and I intentionally literally like give love in that moment. Like I send them positive thoughts because it doesn't serve you to think that way. It's like a bad habit, So there's definitely value in that, man, for sure. So I want to, obviously, we got to dive into your story, but real quick, paint a picture. Where is Up Hospitality today?
Right now, we have 3 restaurants all in the Nashville area. 2 of them are downtown. One is we're reaching into the suburbs, so we're exploring that market. We think that's the future. And yeah, we have an amazing team of managers. We're at the point where, 1 is different than 2 is different than 3. So we're building systems, whether they're financial or operational, to make sure that we can grow in a sustainable way, right? With culture, with financial, which is a whole different game. It's just completely different. And so I just described to my team, it's like we have the puzzle pieces in place on the floor, but they just haven't been pushed together yet.
Got it.
But we have everybody in place to push them together. We just got to do the action steps.
You're at a really exciting time right now. And honestly, dude, I know this is just going to be the first time you're on the show. And, when I think in the past, I wanted to get you on the show, but I was like, I know you got a bunch of stakes in the fire. And I know that when I get you on the show, I want the story to be, I want it to unroll a little bit. And you're opening your 3rd location. One is in Germantown Cafe, just outside of Nashville. The 2nd restaurant you opened in 2024 is Park Cafe. Where is that? East Austin or east of Nashville?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit west of right outside downtown west of Nashville.
And now we're in the burbs, which is Karrington.
Karrington Rowe.
Rowe. Thank you very much. So, I know there's gonna be gold today, and it's exciting because you're at this point, like you said, like where you have all the pieces on the table, the puzzle pieces, and you're gonna push them together, right? But real quick, give us an idea. Where are you at in terms of numbers?
So in 2023, we're at that 18% mark, which is when we're ready to grow.
Damn.
And now 2024 was honestly a rough year,
for a lot of people.
And so luckily we had, relatively strong systems then, and we're only making them stronger. But 18 dropped down to 8.
Wow.
Right now we're probably on average 4 to 6 as we spread. Part of that's because it's brand new concepts, right? And there's a lot of initial investment in as you grow, you pay your managers more, and there's those types of costs, but a lot of that money is to come. And we're also investing in things like PR, right? We have one of the best PR companies in Nashville, Parthenon PR, shout out. And we have again some really amazing consultants that you are aware of that will give us even more granular information, just to be, as they would say it, the utmost professionals. And so it costs, again, we're kind of taking 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward.
You're
so
at that point, 3 locations.
Yeah.
This is a weird time for restaurants where you have to start investing resources into building the house before you move into it, right?
Yeah.
And you get this point where 3 locations is you can be in 2 places at once. You can't be in 3 places at once. You can juggle 2. So you're at this time where a lot of your additional revenue is going to getting those key players to go even further, right? It's a transitional point.
What I've learned through your podcast and the people on the podcast, they say that, the 3rd location is either the kiss of death, or if you can get it figured out, that's the point when you can really start taking advantage of economies of scale.
Yeah, for sure. So, 18% with Germantown Cafe. How many seats at Germantown Cafe?
About 160.
160. So 160 seats, 18%, down to 8%. But, dude, here's the thing. I've been talking to a lot of people, and even the quote-unquote best in the industry in terms of full service, between that 6 and 8% mark right now, unless you're doing crazy volume, that's about average. The people that are James Beard winners and Michelin star, I just had 2 of the most expensive restaurants in the city of Atlanta on the show, and they're at that same about 8 to 10% point. They might have 15 seats, but they're charging crazy. So the reason why I'm asking this question, it makes people get vulnerable, but it also helps people realize what's the reality of the industry right now. People like to front, and we're so good at putting this image into the world to transport and create this illusion for the consumer, but behind the scenes, man, we're all in it together right now. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that just it's any industry is extremely hard, and it takes 1,000 hours. I feel like it's more than that to be super successful, but even especially in an industry that is such low margin generally, right? Because we're in this for passion, but you can't live off passion. So you just have to be so good.
Right.
And if you're not so good, you need to find the people that are so good to get you there faster, because if you don't get there fast enough, you're going to die. So this investment stage, it's painful, but at the same time, if your intention is good, right, constantly giving love to the business and the people, then hopefully you'll come out on top.
I think it's also important to mention with Park Cafe in Karrington Rowe, with Park, you're 1 year in. For a lot of people, they have 2 years of operating capital just to get to the black. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're in the black is a testament. And then you're 1 month, 2 months?
2 months, and then we are in the black after 2 months.
Yeah. So like, I think that's why it's so important to kind of get these numbers out there, to offer context, and to also just be real. And there's a lot of bullshit going out in the world right now, so thank you for the vulnerability. Trust me when I say this guy's the real deal, and you're going to find out why as we get into it. So real quick, take us back to where it makes sense. So I see that your first experience in the restaurant industry is, in terms of your LinkedIn, is 07.
Yes, because that's right when I was in high school.
160 Blue Boca Landmark.
Yeah, and the one that's not on there, which I should put on there, is the hometown restaurant that I was in. Take it a couple years before that, is I'm one of the people that always wanted to do restaurants. So I remember I was in my little bunk bed when I was 11 years old, and I was watching the show Orange County Choppers. I'm not sure if you remember that show, but I remember thinking, when I was even younger, I'd ask my parents, or ask my dad, I said, hey, who makes the most money? And it was the 90s, and so people said, investment, it's probably in finance. And so I would tell people, when they asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be an investment banker and go to Northwestern. But as I was getting a little bit older, middle school, I was always kind of thinking ahead. I was watching Orange County Choppers, and I'm like, these guys yell at each other all the time, but they actually truly enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I just remember thinking in my bed, what I really like doing. And I was a wrestler at the time, so I never ate. And I just honestly really enjoyed the atmosphere of a restaurant, just made me feel good. And so I thought, my hypothesis was, maybe I want to do restaurants and food. And so I told my mom, who had been just, a server back in normal high school days. She's like, I always had good grades when I was younger. So she's like, are you sure you want to do the whole chef thing, restaurant thing? Because the other things on the table were like a pilot, a doctor, or whatever, or investment banker, And then on that list was also chef restaurants. And she said, we'll support you if you want to do that. And this is like 13, 14, but just make sure you get a job before you make a decision for
Good
college.
Advice, Mom.
Yeah, and so first job was a Spanish tapas restaurant. So massive volume. It was like an old mansion house. And so when I was 15, I got my first job. My English teacher helped me get the job. He actually went to lunch with me.
Oh, cool.
Probably be inappropriate nowadays, but he went to the job, introduced me to the person. I showed up in a little suit, right, and said, I'll wash dishes with a suit. And they're like, you're not going to wash dishes, because they had people a lot more efficient than I was. So you can be a busboy, And so with this, a Spanish tapas restaurant as a busboy, you could, it was massive running. So there's a positive, because I was getting a workout when I was doing it. So that just means I got to eat more as a wrestler. But also, I got to work with, an immigrant community, which I'm an extrovert. So that was really interesting to me. And I was learning Spanish, so I could actually practice Spanish.
That's cool.
And I didn't have the words give love back then, but I thought, this is a place where people got proposed to. This was a place where weddings happened. This was a place where there's date nights and all that stuff. So I literally thought sometimes when I went in, when I wasn't in the mood, I was like, well, I get to do this, to create this thing. And it always energized me. And so about a year in, my mom was like, what do you think? I'm like, I fucking love it. This is awesome.
Is that what you said to your mom when you were 15 years old?
Probably. I was really inappropriate to my I've said worse things to my parents. I was a horrible kid,
I can't
behavior wise, but no, I knew that I really, really loved it. I was also very skeptical though, because I knew that was a hard life. And so I ended up going to school. So I got paid at the Spanish tapas restaurant. And then I had a mutual connection that had, it was the personal trainer of somebody on the Bulls. He's actually one of my wrestling coaches. And I told him, I was walking out of Hugo's Frog Bar when I wanted to go into the kitchen and get a job. And he was walking by and he said, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to get a job, in the kitchen. He's like, okay, well, I know this guy. You want to possibly go work for him? And I just knew the word Michael Jordan and whatever. And I was like, yeah. And so I literally just got my license weeks before, I think 2 weeks before. And he got me this job at this fancy restaurant, 160 Blue downtown. And I told my mom, the next week, I was 3 weeks driving with my license. I'm like, I'm going downtown Chicago and I'm going to do this thing. And she's like, okay. Back when you have MapQuest and there wasn't actual directions. And that's my biggest weakness is is directions, and I could get lost in a paper bag.
It's like one of the very few things I feel like I'm very good at, which is great because I'm driving around the country, man.
It's like my biggest weakness and biggest anxiety, honestly. But I learned how to parallel park that first day in the inches of each car. But I went to go work at this fancy restaurant where it wasn't volume, it was tweezers and like precision. And I honestly didn't know what I was doing. Even when I was in it, the cooks and chefs, like one of the chefs actually said, "So what are you looking for, a job?" I'm like, "I'm 15, like we're at the 16 years old." I'm like, "I'm not dropping out of high school for this." But I wasn't even comprehending what I was doing. Like I was gaining experience. I just really enjoyed the atmosphere of like all different types of people, the care, the professionalism of it. And I just like caught the bug even more.
I mean, I'm thinking of, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell who wrote the book Outliers, and that 10,000 hours. And I mean, many of the people listening to this, I doubt you're 14 or 13 years old, like figuring out if you want to get into it. But what you did is the best thing you can do, is just immerse yourself. You can't work there full time, but on your spare time, you can go be around it and make sure it's something you really want to commit your life to, and just get that certainty, right? You said that you love the energy of restaurants, and you said that before you started getting into the experience. Was it just going out to eat that you loved?
Yeah, I think my first ambition in restaurants, right, which has transitioned over the years, was I wanted to create like fairy tales, right? That kind of has to do with my interest in dancing, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But also, when I was little, I was like, there's hard things that happen, and you're like, well, these fairy tales are happy. Like, why don't just make that happen? Just do it. Just make your own fairy tale. And so like the closest thing for me besides like Disney World for a fairy tale was restaurants. And so I guess I was just I wasn't willing to accept like a sad life. And so I'm like, okay, let's just go to the place where people feel happy.
Yeah, that's cool. So after like a year or two of working in the industry, you said you effing loved it. Like, what was it that, you fell in love with specifically? What was the thing that made you really just like know that you wanted to do this for the rest of your life?
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't just one thing. Where a lot of jobs, it is one thing, and then you're stuck doing everything else.
Yeah.
It was like almost every single aspect of it, right? So like there was like really good leadership, right? Like I had really good managers, and that like taught and like were mentors. So I love the learning side of it. I love the interaction piece. I always loved traveling. I got the opportunity to travel when I was younger too, but just, again, being able to learn a language or like interact with people that had such different background from myself. I went to a pretty diverse high school for where I grew up, and I enjoyed that common,
So I mean, at this point, do you know this is going to be your career?
I feel like I'm 70% sure.
Okay. When did you get the passion for dancing? Because from I see 2007, you were working when you started working, and then 2010 to 2016, you're a professional ballroom dancer.
Like literally the exact same time.
So
for
3
food.
years after. So if you're in 2007, how old were you?
I was
16?
born 1990. 17, 16. Well, it was 16, and then I turned 17 that year.
Okay. So when you were 20, you were a professional ballroom dancer.
I wasn't professional. I just competed at a very high level.
Were you working in restaurants this entire time?
Yeah. So like the dancing and food happened like right around the same time, right around 12, that epiphany. Dance was just a complete fluke. My parents were always athletic. He was a college athlete, always looked up to him for he worked out till the day he died. He ate clean. He just set a really good example in that way. But they definitely weren't dancers. I heard my grandpa was. They always tell me that's where I eventually, got that gene. But honestly, I went on only one cruise in my life, and you go to a hotel the day before down in Miami. I fell asleep on a pool deck. I woke up. There was a salsa convention going on, and right around 12 is when you really start liking the other sex, And I woke up. I'm like, that is hot. And those guys look like masculine, and the girls are awesome. And I'm not, and, I had a basic idea of what supply and demand meant, It's like, these girls are the hottest I've ever seen, moving in the hottest way I've ever seen. And I know there's guys down in Miami that look like that, but everywhere else, there's probably not a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, why am I wearing a singlet wrestling other men? I'll wear tight clothes. I'll wear some sparkles. And I'm like one of like 100, like one man to like 100, like the sexiest people ever. It's like, why, where is that decision? But no, I ended up like 6 months later, there was a girl that I had a little crush on at the time, and she was Latina, and she asked me serendipitously, like 6 months after that experience, do you want to learn a salsa dance? I said, yeah, I do. We went to a ballroom studio to learn how to do it. I kind of felt like an idiot when I went to their little social dances because I only kind of knew one dance. So I started learning more just to not feel embarrassed. And I really enjoyed it. And then the studio owner at the time brought me to a competition, and I saw these like crazy athletic guys with like stupid control of their body, which is what I liked about wrestling, was just the control.
Yeah.
And then again, the other sex. And I did have some sense of awareness that like at the time I was, I think maybe 13 years old by then, 13 and a half. And I was like, okay, most people in this industry are European, most of the guys. Yes, I'm like 4 years behind a lot of those people, 4 or 5 years behind those kids. But I'm like, if I start now at 13, I'm not like crazy far. And if I really devote it, and that was the thing about wrestling, like I was a pretty good wrestler just because I was disciplined. And like if I just apply that same time, it's gonna be so much more enjoyable, and I can catch up. And so I just basically did that. So all my parents didn't have the money to dances like tennis or golf or hockey, honestly, where it costs a lot to do it. Yeah. And so my parents gave what they could to help me learn, but basically literally every dollar that I had from restaurants in cash just went directly to my coaches.
So then by 2010, you're working as a professional ballroom dancer for ABC. Or when did that happen, ABC?
So specifically, I was in college, right? I chose Purdue because they had a hospitality program, and then they had one of the top ballroom dance teams in the nation, which again, coming from a place where I was paying for all of those lessons, they brought in some of the world champions, like some of the best people, and they were charging like nothing basically, right? Just because they had the resources to do it. And so it was a big decision. It was probably honestly more of a decision than the major that I chose to go to college, just because if I'm going to play regret game, I can always learn, right? But to have this opportunity to get this type of coaching from a level, and so that freshman year, I feel like the doors were just unleashed from a dance perspective, that like I could take as much as I wanted for basically pennies on the dollar. And so, and my partner at the time had the same ambition. So we just 5 hours a day, every single day. And by the end of the year, Dancing with the Stars was doing some segments where they were bringing in like younger people or students. And so they had this, tryout for all these colleges to like try out. And so like hundreds of colleges submitted videos, and then our college was already kind of one of the better ones, and so we got to like the final mix, and I honestly, it wasn't like the best on the team. I was a freshman, and there were people that were coming here as seniors, and so I actually wasn't on the original pick to go, because they got picked to go on the show and to compete further.
What were you at this point in your life though? Like you're studying hospitality.
Yes.
So the plan was always to get in just 6 months? Yeah,
well, I just didn't like. I'd already been doing hospitality for 5 years, right?
So what did you switch your major?
No, 3 years. I switched my major. Yeah.
To what?
Finance.
I think that's probably a good move.
Yeah, well, and that's what I thought. Like a lot of the stuff that I was learning within the first semester. Granted, it was only the first semester, but I just couldn't justify how much money my parents, again, very fortunate, were spending to do that. And so my brain, again, back to the investment banking, I always had a math brain, and I was interested in it still. And so I chose to do finance.
No, I think that's smart. I mean, you can go work, to your point, you can go work and learn more about the industry than you could ever pick up at a hospitality degree. It's just like, and then the other thing is like, you got to go get that experience. You got to go get in there and make sure it's what you want to spend the rest of your life through. Spending money to go learn about hospitality when you can get paid to do it, and you're not going to get paid that much. So you don't want to you don't want to come out of the gates in debt, but getting that finance experience and understanding finance, that's where so many restaurateurs go wrong. It's money and relationships. Those are the two kisses of death in the restaurant industry, where people those are the things, like somewhat relative to those two things. I mean, it's adjacent to one of those things usually when people struggle. So at what point are you saying like, I want to own a restaurant someday?
I've always wanted to own it. Yeah.
Okay. What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network. When did you start living intentionally to actually make that happen?
It was after once I graduated from school, I honestly took a finance job just because I already knew that I liked hospitality. But I just, again, didn't want to take the shot of like making a lot of money, and maybe I liked that, right? Because if I made a lot of money, then I could maybe open a restaurant in a different way later.
Okay.
So I got a job as a financial analyst.
What year was that?
When I graduated, 2013.
Okay.
So it was a job out of college.
Got it.
And I got with a group that was crazy smart people. They were like investment bankers and consultants, and it was like in retail, which, it had a lot of sexiness to it. And so like of any world of finance outside of food, I was like, this is the world that I probably would like. The people that I was around were amazing, young. Like we were on a mission. Like it was the ambiance that I should have liked. At the end of the day, I just didn't, right? Like what I was going, like at the end, I was literally thinking, I'm doing all this. I didn't mind the finance stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm just like selling socks.
Yeah. So you're working for Shop Your Way. What was that?
It was Sears Holdings. Okay. So obviously they recently closed down permanently, but I was part of I got into a group that was trying to bring them out of their kind of downward spiral.
Got it.
And Shop Your Way was like a social commerce time. So this is right when Facebook is taken off, and they're utilizing social interactions to sell. And so we were digging into ways to sell digitally, but using social interactions and loyalty and points and all of that. So it was interesting. It was new. We were on like cutting edge of things with really smart people that was funded well.
What was the strategy of working here when you knew in the back of your mind you wanted to open restaurants, or were you still kind of hesitant?
I was still, I wasn't hesitant. I just wanted to check off the box, right? Like I didn't want to pigeonhole myself too, right? Because if I go into finance, then I get a skill set. And if I go too far into food, like it's going to be hard to get a job in finance afterward, right? So order of operations, finance degree, finance job, I could always go back to
That was a finance job. Your title was chief of staff. That was a finance job. Were you basically like managing like labor costs?
First I was a financial analyst. I was strictly finance. Funny story to get to the chief of staff job. I won't go too into it because but basically I became the shield, the coordinator of the senior vice president of a company. It was a prodigy kid. But basically he, from an emotional standpoint, I was honestly the shield between the rest of like this Fortune 500 company and him. And so like he would give directives, and honestly he would give them.
So you were the emotional intelligence that he hired.
Seriously, yeah. He was a prodigy. He was 27 years old as a senior vice president of the Fortune 500 company, and he didn't have that
I've
filter.
come into contact with people like that who are, like in terms of like programming or coding or like understanding like the systems behind things, are just like prodigies, like natural born. But in terms of like social emotional intelligence, it's just like, this is why we belong in tribes, because you have your lane, I have my lane. Like you focus on that thing, I'll focus on this thing. So so how long were you doing that before you realized that you actually do want to go open a restaurant? Like what was like the tipping point for you where you say, okay, I got the experience, I made sure, like I tapped the brakes a little bit just to make sure this is what I want, let's make this happen?
It was a year and a half.
Okay. Are we missing anything that's key to your story?
No, not really. I think the only thing is that during that time, I'd always maintained contact with like the Hillstone Restaurant Group. They actually recruited at business fairs, and they were known, as I researched, as kind of like the Goldman Sachs, keeping the finance thread going. Goldman Sachs of the restaurant industry. They paid extremely well. They were known for systems and profitability, professionalism. And so I maintained contact literally from first year of college. I went to the career fairs all the way through the finance interaction. So that led me to my next step.
So you're the assistant culinary manager.
Yep.
So is that more like focusing on like inventory, like accounts receivable, accounts payable, that sort of thing?
Yep. So I transitioned to the Hillstone Restaurant Group. And first it was just a manager in training. And during that, I was going down the general manager path. I had a background in kitchens, and so they asked at the time, do you want to do the culinary manager path? And honestly, I didn't, right? I enjoyed the front of house even more, but I said, well, is this a quicker path to becoming a general manager? And they said, absolutely, because a lot of people weren't willing or just didn't have that skill set or want to have that skill set.
I think it's also really good. I think a lot of people who become general managers are usually front of house people, but to understand the world of back of house and get that holistic perspective is really important.
Oh, I think it was the best decision still.
Yeah.
And so I went assistant culinary manager, and then the finance skills. The thing that I learned in finance is I could create something from nothing, like a system from nothing on Excel into something. And so that's what I did with Hillstone. Is I saw opportunities from my background and from what they were teaching me. And I said, well, there's a hole here. Why don't you just do blank? Well, we don't have time, or we don't know how. And the other thing with finance is like, you're expected to do it immediately. Like, there is no 48 hours. It's like you stay up till 2 a.m. and you finish it, and then you give it to your boss the next day. So like, they would give me a task, it was a relatively easy task compared to what I did before.
Right. And
I was like, okay, here, like, oh, that would be cool, and I give it to them the next day. And so like, again, with corporations, like, larger groups, they value that. And so that, among just experience, they gave me a lot of opportunity pretty quickly. And so I went from assistant culinary manager, and then they moved me, and then I became culinary manager, which is basically you run the kitchen.
So you were there from 2014 December till June 2016, so about a year and a half.
And I would have stayed longer. I actually love the group.
Why'd you leave?
Just, again, order of operations of life. One of the choreographers on Dancing with the Stars, and one of my other mentors from dance, had told me they were opening up a studio, or one of them was opening up a studio in Columbus, Ohio, and he's a big name. He's the one who gave me the quote of "Give love." I admired him and this other coach quite a bit. Her name's Kimberly Mitchell. And they kept asking, like, "Hey, are you gonna are you gonna turn pro? Are you gonna turn pro?" And I was like, "I don't know if I want to." But before I knew it, I was 20 years old, and then I was 24, and it felt like a blink of your eye. And if you're gonna dance, like, you only have till late 20s, 30, unless you're like the best in the world. And so
yeah, that
really
you have the rest of your
game.
life to work in restaurants, but you got your youth to do something that you need your body for.
Yeah,
you need your body for restaurants.
And one of my mentors from the Hillstone Restaurant Group had told me this. He's like, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but he had kids early, and he and I told him that this opportunity was on the table, and he said, I should probably not tell you this. He's like, but I always wanted to do the whole band thing. I was not able to. We're always going to take you back. Yeah. He's like, you should go. He literally said, you should go do that.
So how long did you do that?
I did that for 2.5, 3 years.
Okay. Before we kind of unpackage how that might have influenced you, like, what was your biggest point of evolution working for the Hillstone Group?
Systems. Like there's a reason for everything, right?
Where are they based? Chicago?
It's a joke. They say they're not based anywhere, right? Okay. Technically, you would say New York and California, but they're not really based anywhere. They have. They probably. I'm not sure. When I was working with them, they had 38 restaurants. They're probably in the 50s at this point.
Who's the person that I should talk to there?
Well, you won't get an interview with the founder. He pays money to not get. There's only been one article ever written about them, and it's with. There's one New York Times article.
This isn't an article. It's a conversation.
I know, but he's not going to talk to you.
Why not?
Actually, his partner, the first Hillstone, was called Huston's, and it was here in Nashville. And so his original partner actually lives here. I've been trying to get a conversation with him for a long time.
Do you know why they're so buttoned up?
Private? I think they just value their privacy. I mean, I bet you he's a very high millionaire or billionaire at this point, and I think a lot of people would say that if you have that type of clout, maybe it just doesn't have value, but if you have that type of money and that type of influence, you probably have a happier life if you're in private. I would assume that. I can't assume. I only met the guy 2 times. So
who is the person that you can recommend to me?
There's 3
that
people.
Would put me 1 point removed from the people I need to talk to. Or 3 people. Give me those names.
There's local people here actually at our restaurants.
Okay.
So it'd be me to get to the owner here. But there's 3 people in that group that they're with other groups.
You
now,
can tell me after if you want.
No, I honestly don't know for him. He's not going to get it. You're better off getting actually Bricktops, Joe Ledbetter.
Say that one more time.
Bricktops is the original founder of Hillstone, had 3 partners, and they split off. One bought the other. George Beal went off to, found Hillstone, and then Joe Ledbetter, who is the other founder, stayed here in Nashville, and he found Bricktops. It's basically the same restaurant, honestly. and they're extremely successful as well. And now this group has spread down to the southeast Bricktops, and so they're a little bit more open, not crazy, but a little bit more.
And what's the name of the gentleman who's close?
I mean, a lot of them aren't close.
Even know
they're not close
enough. His name's
enough.
not even out there?
I mean, Joe Ledbetter is like, he's the partner. But I mean, there's a couple people. Chris Florzak, he is with Rise Concepts out in Dallas, and they have, I think, Dallas, Houston. They opened up a third one recently. He's a CEO. He's one of my mentors. Jeff Lee, he is the one who told me to leave, and he's actually one who brought me back to Nashville. He's amazing. And then
where's Jeff Lee today?
He's in Dallas as well.
Okay.
And then Matt Gottlieb, he's also in Dallas. They were all kind of like higher level.
All right, we'll talk
execs.
afterwards.
Yeah, we'll talk.
I'm gonna see what I can do here. Yeah, systems, man, like you can't overrate it. So, all right, you leave the world of restaurants, you go do your dance itch, you scratch that thing. When you're at the end of dancing, like when did you decide that, okay, you scratched the itch, you spent 3 years doing it, like what was the tipping point for you to come back to the restaurant industry?
Well, and all the while I was dancing, I knew I was going to come back. It's like dancing, how you make your money besides performances is sales, right? And development of people one-on-one. And so like every single time.
Selling what talent to like
dance lessons.
Got it.
But really you're not selling dance lessons, right? You're selling interaction, you're selling connection, you're selling development.
Experience.
It's basically being a restaurant manager,
yeah,
to tell you the truth. And so I would take all these notes because it was very direct teaching. It was more direct than restaurants, right? So when I came back, I was splitting up with my partner, decided, there's only a couple more years left. I'm just going to go back to pursuing the long-term vision. And I reached out to a handful of mentors, one of which was the one who told me to leave, or gave me the permission more or less to like leave Hillstone.
Before you get back to that point, I think there's a really cool lesson underlying like the connecting the idea of being a dance instructor and a manager. What are those parallels? Like, what did you learn about how to become a better manager through instructing dance?
Well, and that's where I said my motivation changed over the years. First, it was to create like a fairy tale experience. Then it was kind of about a guest because I could see an immediate gratification.
The student being the guest,
right? And and then when I went to dancing, you had a period of time over like a couple years, multiple months, where you can actually see somebody go from one thing to like something else.
Transformation.
Yeah. And so a lot of times the ones who like stuck with dancing longest, yes, there were super competitive people that was a lot of fun. However, the ones who I feel like got the most out of it from a holistic experience was people who had troubled, like they struggled personally with things, right? So like they struggled with socializing, with body weight issues, with I wouldn't say trauma, but like some form of trauma, which in restaurants
we all carry a little.
But in restaurants, like this is where it's an attraction point for people in transition or people that come from generally tougher backgrounds, right? Like people that we all know, right? They are incarcerated. That they didn't have great family upbringings. They didn't have too much guidance. They don't know what they want to do.
Right.
Same thing for dance. The people that actually stuck to it were the ones that fully valued, oh, this is an opportunity for me to meet people, for me to develop myself. And it just happens to be through like the means of dancing.
Got
right?
it. So, but I think that the big takeaway I pull from that is this idea of, taking somebody with no experience and then working on them and seeing them improve at what their craft, right? So in many ways you were developing people, and we are I think, they say that restaurant isn't about selling food, it's about creating experiences. But I think really what we're in the business is, we're in people development, because we got to create the people, give them the skill sets to be able to deliver those experiences. So like, at the core of it, we're transforming individuals, right? And that's what you were doing with dance. Yeah,
and I think like that's the internal life tokens that I kind of consider them to myself. It's like, even if this place went bankrupt like tomorrow, which hopefully is not the case, but like you can never take away that server who went from like having cancer to recovering and being feel supported, right? That person who was a high school kid who had a horrible upbringing, and you were like, quote unquote, the parents that gave him inspiration, like, and he's going to go off and live an amazing life. Like, you can't take those things away. So no matter what, unlike selling socks, right? Like, no matter what, even if you went bankrupt, you didn't go bankrupt, right? Like
Yeah.
you still put something really positive in the world.
Yeah, there's more value in the world than financial, fiscal value. You know, those relationships, and yeah, there's value there for sure. So, okay, 2018, you're all in with hospitality.
Yes.
What was your plan at this point?
I was open, right? You know, I wasn't, the only reason I wasn't going with Hillstone is because I had met my wife. We just got married, and, you know, we didn't want to move every 6 months. And that was part of the gig that I actually really enjoyed when I was with them.
Yeah.
And so, again, my old boss brought me down to Nashville, and it was for a hotel, which is something I haven't done before. And it was a hotel that had a lot of entertainment with it. And so, like, my dance background plus being able to build something from scratch, it was an opening. And the thought was that you'd have normal quote unquote hours, which was not the case, because hotels are 24 hours operations, especially when you have a nightclub. So the thought was like, maybe there's some like life that I could be had and not work 80 hours, 90 hours. And I could do a little dancing with myself or my wife on the side. Nashville is, you know, warm most of the year, not right now when you're with us.
It's 50 degrees out, man. I'm from New Hampshire. It's warm right now.
But yeah, so I just thought that, you know, I could get quote unquote balance, but I wasn't really necessarily worried about balance. But like I could actually lay down roots in a city, develop connections, and just like grow from those roots in the city.
Got it. Why Dream?
Well, one, that's the executive from Hillstone became the vice president of food and beverage.
I should say Dream Hotel Group.
Yeah, Dream Hotel
Group. So you joined the Dream Hotel Group.
So he was the connection, right? But the reason it worked out so quickly and well is that the Dream Hotel Group is known for doing entertaining things, right? There's a lot of creativity behind it. And so they wanted to bring in, like, actually, the reason they brought in my, you know, boss at the time was they wanted the Hillstone culinary program, more or less. And so they brought us in to create that program. But on top of that layer is when we were doing concerts, we were doing burlesque, we were doing craft cocktail programs, we were doing craft coffee programs, which Hillstone didn't do. And so I'm more like the base of it with a lot of like fluff and sprinkles and frosting on top, which was exciting, right?
Yeah.
There was media. And
so what was your biggest evolution, your biggest transformation during this time? How did you grow the most?
During the Dream period?
Yeah, from 2018 to 2021.
There's just confidence that I could build hospitality and form hospitality in my image, not mine, but like a common vision. So with Hillstone, we were fulfilling their vision, right? The owners of the Dream Hotel Group were local and they were fantastic, right? They're people that are very influential in our city. And to their credit, right, it was even though it's a brand, it's like Richard Branson. As long as the things you do fit the brand, you can do them. And they gave us that leeway. We proposed a lot of fun things. Like we were kind of some of the ones that really kicked off the pop-up craze here in Nashville. And we said we need to spend, you know, $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 to like decorate a bar, and when you describe it seemingly a tacky way, right? But they're like, all right. And with my finance stuff, I was like, you know, we could potentially make this much money. Here's the opportunity. And they're like, all right, give it a shot. And when it worked, do it again. Here's some more money. And then eventually we just got a lot of leeway to like try what we wanted. And we crafted the program with the brand in mind, right? So we went from, you have to do this to learn the systems. This is how we do it in Hillstone. Dream was like, here's the brand, do things that fit the brand, which is honestly our personality. So it was very closely aligned.
When you say our personality, meaning your...
me and my business partner that we were kind of paired up.
Give him some love.
Yeah, it's G.R. Boone.
Yeah,
you met him here earlier. He developed the nightlife at Dream, and I was kind of doing a lot of the day life.
Yeah. So it was more of a less rigid, but like very clear vision, culture, and within these guidelines, execute. But these are your borders. Don't go beyond these borders.
And you can create events of your own. There's just a lot more freedom.
So how did that like? I mean, that's what you were doing, but how did that make you a better person? Like, what did you learn from this experience?
I just feel like it just reinforced that I could be a leader, and I could do it on my own, honestly.
So help you develop that confidence that you have what it takes.
Yeah, and then we had so many teams, and I was able to, again, I was at Dream, I was the director of food and beverage, so like I was the person. Right?
Was the program good? Were you guys known? Like, were you like?
Yeah, we were great. You know, we got written up in the New York Times, and we were doing record sales even during COVID. You know, we were like flew ahead. We became known.
And you were there until 2021. So you started as the general manager for food and beverage, and then you ended up as the director of restaurants after about a year and 3 months.
Yeah.
How was those roles different?
Well, the opening was technically there was somebody above me, another really great leader. Honestly, if you get to Ohio, you should talk to her. But
Give me a name.
Ella Kaufman.
Ella, look out.
She's with the North Star Group, who actually those owners came from Hillstone as well. But what was I gonna say?
I was asking you the transition from general manager of food and beverage to director of restaurants.
So she was
somebody
the director,
was above you.
Yep, she was the director of restaurants, and so she transitioned back to Columbus about after a year, and so I stepped into that role. She and I worked really closely together, so it was just more supportive, and so it was a pretty smooth transition. But again, I didn't have at that point. I just didn't have I was reporting to the owners. Like at that point, there was no level in between, and everybody reported up to me. And so it's like, you might as well be the owner of the places, right?
Are you making six figures at this point?
No.
As a director of restaurants, I feel like I don't know. I feel like that's beyond a general man. Oh, you must be close to six figures. Right?
Yeah, we're close, and honestly, a lot of other restaurants were. I mean, that was the one point of
contention,
compromise.
Yeah.
You know, it was right around COVID, right? But that was the one point of compromise when I went from even dancing to here. Is Hillstone paid very well, right? And if you were their people, they treated you even better, right?
Yeah.
And so when I came here, I took a major pay cut relative to that. But again, getting paid in things that aren't necessarily monetary value. Like I had a big interest in entertainment and stepping into that world, and the fact that I knew I wanted to live in Nashville, and then I knew the owners were very influential in the city. So if I have a longer term, whether it was a dream or somebody else, have that connection, develop that relationship, and it has paid off since then of developing those relationships.
Right.
And so there's a relationship capital there as well.
Also, to your point, there's the adjacent things of your interest, the entertainment, but you're also getting experience working a restaurant in a hotel, which is a different set of skills, right? What were the key things that are different from that world, from the world you're in now?
One, you do get more support, right, from a maintenance and a financial side. So I got to learn a lot from people very good at their roles, and you just walk up to their door and do it. So that was very beneficial. But also with most hotels and restaurants, you need to make money, right? You need to make a lot of money if you're in a restaurant. In hotels, it's not always the focus. For our hotel, it was, right? Because it was a nightclub, and we tried to push volume. And so you weren't number one in a hotel as a restaurant. With our boutique hotel, we were closer to being a focus because that's what brought a lot of people to the hotel, were the things that we were providing. But that was hard to stomach sometimes, right? Because we were treated as the golden children. If you were the top of the kitchen or the top of the restaurant at Hillstone, you got treated like gold. If you went to Napa on your vacation, the Hillstone Group would connect you with all the wineries, and they would treat you like kings, right? Give you anything you wanted. And then you go to the hotel, and there's a GM, there's a director of sales, and they're like, well, yeah, but you don't need to be in the executive meeting. I'm like, what do you mean I don't need to be in the executive meeting? I'm the GM. I'm the king. What do you mean? And then eventually, I mean, they all came from hotels, whereas the leadership, eventually we got into executive meetings, but that was hard to stomach, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do have an ego, right?
We all do.
And that's my personality, is to try to push to the top always. So that was tough.
So after 2 years of working Dream, kind of, scratching this itch to be adjacent to things of your interest, developing relationships, what are you feeling? What's going on in your mind? What are you internalizing? Where is your focus at this point?
Well, at this point, I know that Nashville is the city that I want to be in, right? Because there's lots of entertainment. It's small enough where you can really connect with a lot of people. I just enjoyed the vibe of the city. I come from Chicago, right? I was in dancing where I was in a lot of big cities, and so I really enjoyed the vibe of the city. And so at this point, me and my business partner, we were creating this program for other people. I was aware of the financials and stuff, and so I said, eventually, a lot of people, we're doing this for them. I think it's time for us to do this for ourselves. And so he and I started looking for opportunities, random opportunities, to get into it for ourselves. things just weren't panning out for honestly about a year. We were just talking to random people. And then I was living in a cute town, a cute little spot of downtown called Germantown. My wife and I would always pass by and go into a restaurant, there's Germantown Cafe, and they had amazing soup, a handful of really amazing dishes. It just hadn't been updated since it was founded in 2003.
Okay.
Right. So or 2000. Yeah. 2003.
This is 2020 around that time.
This is 2019.
2019.
And so I was literally sitting in the bathroom on a date with my wife, and I was just kind of frustrated because these other things weren't working out. And I texted our broker at the time, and I was like, man, this place isn't for sale, but it's not like going up. It's pretty just maintaining the status quo. And I just see how much opportunity there is with it. There's a lot going for it. And so I texted him, and she said, yeah, let me see what I can do. And, serendipitously, she had actually sold the current investor another business months before, so she knew him pretty well.
Okay.
She just wanted to make sure it would match up. And so after there was interest, or at least open to a conversation, she connected us.
So you're working with this broker. So you're kind of, in your mind, you're thinking you're ready to go do your own thing.
Yeah.
And you're talking to people. You're looking. You're shopping around. This place appeals to you. You poke the broker. The broker pokes the investor, and then she plays matchmaker.
Yes. And so the investor and we spoke, and I shared my vision for the place, just from my background.
What was your vision for the place?
One, to modernize it, make it efficient, and then grow it to the next chapter, right? Using technology, using culture, and honestly using some of the entertainment pieces that I think Nashville craves, and you can do it in this specific location. And I wanted to scale, right? I wasn't at that point, right? I did know that economics in restaurants, you can't just have one to have the life that I want us to have, but also our leaders to have.
Say that one more time.
In order to scale, I believe that in order to provide a life for me and for our leaders, I think you need to scale. That's one thing I learned with Hillstone.
Yeah. You need to create opportunity. You got to share the wealth. In order to give, you need to create more channels of income, right?
Yeah.
The only way to do that is to create
opportunity,
100%. I wonder what that balance looks like sometimes, because I think there is a balance to be met, and the verdict's still out for me. But I think at this point it's pretty safe to say the only way to, if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Yes.
But you didn't realize this at the time, or you did realize this at the time.
I didn't know this at the time because that was part of the stipulation. So I shared this. The investor was on board. He is a restaurant guy. He made his, his money in a different way, but he has a lot of experience in restaurants.
So this investor guy owns this building.
He doesn't own the building. He owns the business.
He owns the business, and he had invested in somebody else.
He had bought the business, and he had operators, and then the chef was also his partner.
Got it. Where was the opportunity with this space? When you were there, you love the space, but what was missing?
Consistency, and honestly the things that Hillstone teaches. So I felt like I was very equipped to change things.
Okay.
And so consistency in service, consistency in food, increased quality of the food, right? So good flavors, but lots of room for improvement in terms of how you source the product, how you deliver the product, and then marketing, right? Nobody's doing marketing at all. They weren't doing any modern marketing. And so that was the ambition. And so we found out that we paired well. I said the only way I'm coming on is if we're going to do 3. We're at 3. And then we signed papers. I think 2 or 3 weeks later, a tornado came, wiped out the restaurant. And 2 weeks after that, COVID hit.
And this is around the time I feel like this is where I think we kind of cross paths.
Well, I had always listened, but that's when you opened up the community, and I jumped on that opportunity to get to know you.
Well, this is kind of, because I remember you sharing your progress. This is all this stuff going on. And I remember how devastated you were. You got it. You made everything happen, right?
Yeah.
And then weeks after, tornado. Can you kind of walk us through that agreement? So you said, okay, the goal is 3, right? Yeah. You wanted 3 Germantown cafes.
3 restaurants. I knew we couldn't scale Germantown, the name Germantown Cafe.
Why couldn't you?
Well, one, people already come into the restaurant thinking we serve German food.
Got it.
We don't. It's in Germantown.
Got it.
So confusion, but also trademarking too. And honestly, I think that the word cafe made sense 20 years ago. People got that was French cafe. Nowadays, people think it's coffee. So people know it's there because it's been there for so long. But we still get plenty of inquiries from people from out of town asking for cappuccinos.
Yeah, but your break into the ownership is kind of a unique path that like you went to somebody, they own this business, they have partners in the business. You kind of like leveraged your experience to without working there, you just kind of pitched them, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, how do you approach that? Like, this is very unique. I don't think I've ever really covered this approach before on the show.
Well, and this is what I recommend for most managers or servers trying to grow. Honestly, anybody. This is what I did in finance to get that chief of staff job too. It's like you do some crazy amount of work for a crazy amount of time sometimes, and then you give them no other option. Like, it'd be stupid for them not to choose you. And so what I told, the words that I used when I talked to him despite the vision was, he said, well, what is my involvement if we were to become partners? And I said, honestly, I want you to collect mailbox money. Not because I'm just trying to like wet your whistle and brown nose you. It's like the system that I'm trying to roll out, like this Hillstone based system plus entertainment, there's so many small things that need to happen to make it successful. If you stick your hand in that, especially in the beginning, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need you to step out completely so that I can make the change that need to be changed to make you money.
Got it.
And so the first year 2 weeks after we signed the paper, and so I told him that that's the goal. We decided we were going to keep going through and we're going to get through this renovation. And I just followed through on what I told him. I want you to collect mail check money. I'm going to do everything. I wasn't getting paid a dime. And so for a year and a half over COVID, I basically had a second job getting through all the insurance, doing the I don't know what it's called, where you like make sure all the equipment and stuff that got ruined gets fixed.
Okay.
Doing lease negotiations, doing construction stuff, like for a year and a half, a full-time job for free. Technically, because I wasn't paid, and our contract didn't start until we reopened the restaurant.
Okay. So you, before the hurricane, a couple weeks before the hurricane, he agrees to the terms.
Yep.
What was that agreement called? Like, what is like the technical term for this agreement?
Operating agreement.
It was an operating agreement. What are the things we need to know about setting up an operating agreement like this?
I think the most important thing that made it appealing to him is that like I didn't get anything until I produced results. Okay.
So in this agreement, you're essentially operating his assets for a salary
at the time. Yeah.
And on what was that? What were the terms of like you said? If we start this, the goal is to get to 3 locations.
Yep.
What else do we need to know
that was just, are we going to get into partnership? He agreed that we would do 3. If these stipulations are met, well, I'll do 3.
What were those stipulations?
That we get to a certain profit level.
What was that profit level?
It was basically, what was it at the time? It was like a projection that I had created that basically said it was like $300,000 in profit or something. Like
okay.
That.
In how much time?
Whenever. And so if it took 5 years, that's when I would get it. But
so once you created $300,000 worth of profit out of this restaurant, you could earn partner.
Yeah, and at that point they were barely breaking even. So
okay.
like again, if I were to be successful, why wouldn't he give it to me? Because it's better than the situation they're in.
Did you earn $300,000 for him?
Yeah, in 18 months we did.
18 months.
Yeah, we did $400,000.
Damn, dude,
yep.
That's wild. Okay, so you said you did this by rolling out the Hillstones. What's that?
Sorry, $380,000.
380 in 18 months.
Yeah.
And you said you did this for him by rolling out the Hillstone systems. So I mean, I want to get to that clearly, but then 2 weeks later, after he agrees to the terms, at this point, are you up hospitality?
Not technically.
Okay.
No.
The hurricane or the tornado rolls through Germantown, doesn't destroy, but hurts the building enough.
It totals the building.
Yeah. From when that storm happened to when you reopened, how much time elapsed?
18 months.
18 months. So the 18 months starts at that, the 18 months where you returned the $300,000, you met the $300,000 agreement.
That's what I joke is like it took us the same amount of time to pay back as it took us to rebuild the place. So
okay.
We rebuilt the place in 18 months, and 18 months later, I was able to repay. We were repaying constantly,
So 36 months.
Yeah.
From the agreement, but you also had to rebuild the restaurant. So, yeah. Okay. So you started saying, all the things that you were doing in terms of like the insurance and all this. Any lessons from that in terms of like insurance that you learned the hard way, even though it wasn't necessarily your insurance because you didn't set up the insurance at this point, you were kind of inheriting the insurance, but like lessons learned that like you kind of just like, oh man, like if I had foresight or if I had done this, like what's worth knowing in that regard?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, the person who like stored the stuff, I swear is a con man, you know, like
stored what?
Stored all of our equipment. Which has to do with insurance and everything. He would lie all the time, and the insurance company itself, it took 8 months to get one reply.
Did you say insured?
What?
Did you say insured or stored?
Stored.
What do you mean stored?
There was some equipment there was some stuff that we were able to salvage from the restaurant.
Okay.
So we stored it.
Got it.
So that's one piece, is that person was crazy to work with. And then the insurance company itself, one, just valuing an insurance company that cares, which we found one recently, which is a big deal. But this one just didn't care, right? It was like Berkshire Hathaway. And they it took 8 months to get a response. They literally just weren't responding, and they did owe us. And it was the benefit of a tornado is a very clear insurance claim, whereas everybody else was doing COVID, which was nobody knew what that was.
Right.
This was very clear and covered, and they weren't responding at all. And so we had a regular who stopped by pretty often, and I'm trying to look up the name, but he basically gave me like the insurance cop, which I would give to everybody. The
insurance cop?
There's a word.
Are you saying COP?
I'm trying to see. No, it's not an actual insurance cop, but that's the equivalent. There's a name of an insurance person. Like basically he's like the lawmaker of insurance. So if insurance people are not behaving correctly, you just drop this person's
muscle.
Yeah, you drop this title. I'm going to contact. I need to look it up. Insurance commissioner. That's what it is. So you have to do two things if the insurance person isn't acting appropriately. You have to email them and say, I'm going to contact the insurance commissioner because, quote, you are not acting in good faith.
So this is the insurance commissioner is this like legal or is this like a government or like private? Like
I don't know. It might be a third party. I'm not sure who it is, but this was our regular who was in insurance said if this company truly is not acting, like is not responding to for a very legitimate claim, drop these words because these are not light words. Drop those words and they'll respond.
Okay.
Sure enough, they responded. We also like blasted them on local news, but they finally responded, and it was just a big nightmare. But again, to the importance, get an insurance company that one specializes in restaurants. Society Insurance is one that has done amazing for us, and they specialize in hospitality. And if they're not doing it, drop the insurance commissioner and say that they're not acting in good faith.
Okay, so that's just like so that's just like a general like title of somebody who works, and they're are these?
I feel like they're a regulator.
Who employs
of sorts.
Insurance commissioners?
I don't know. I feel like it might be the government. I think it's a regulator of some sort.
Sounds like a government title.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're working with Society Insurance?
Yeah.
Are they based here in Nashville, or is this like national?
This is national. Our broker connected us with them, but it's a hospitality broker too.
Got it. Cool. So, okay. Thank you for that lesson. So, 18 months later, restaurants remodeled. Is this kind of in hindsight kind of like a good thing? Because you eventually did get the insurance. You got to use that money to refresh the or give it a facelift. Yep. When was that tornado?
2020.
2020?
March 2nd.
March 2nd, 2020. So this is also kind of in hindsight
is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because nobody got injured. It was a clear insurance claim. We got a lot less than we were supposed to get, but we still got something, right? It's a lot more than a lot of people with COVID can say. We didn't get any, COVID relief because we were closed before COVID.
But what's better, the COVID relief or insurance?
Insurance, because it's money.
Right.
That we don't have to pay back.
Exactly. And you get to, and it was totaled, so you got to use that money, not only money to cover your income, but you also had money to invest in building out a better restaurant.
Yes.
So how much of that do you think played into your success in the 18 months?
Oh, a lot. Yeah. Because it just gave us some peace of mind, a little bit of cash flow just to pay for minimal things. Actually, our investor fronted all of that. We didn't get paid back from the insurance until like 8 months after we opened. So again, our investor is amazing.
Okay. So he basically knew the money was on its way. He fronted the cash to get the project going.
Well, he didn't get paid fully back from the insurance.
Oh my gosh.
The insurance paid for maybe 20% of it. So.
Okay. So with Hillstone, so you said, part of the agreement was I'm going to roll out the Hillstone systems. That was like, you need to get out of the way. I'm going to give you mail check money, check mail money. What did you say?
Money.
Mailbox money. And I just need you to get out of the way so I can roll out the Hillstone systems. Can you describe what the Hillstone systems are?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the stuff that, a lot of our consultants and resources on Restaurant Unstoppable talk about, but they just weren't widely distributed at the time. So
what do you mean they weren't? What was it? The systems? There wasn't common knowledge?
Yeah. There's checklists for everything, right? There's specifications for everything, right? It's like, how big is the lettuce? How big is the broccoli that you're supposed to come in? It's written down someplace in a common location.
So you're about to cover the structure of the systems, and you said checklists for everything. Just run through all those things real quick.
So there's a checklist for everything. There's a specification for everything, whether that's attire, the food that you are receiving and preparing.
Okay, don't get into the details. Just go through all of it, and then we'll break it down.
Okay, so it's what did I say?
Checklist for everything, specification for everything.
Yep. Then there is time standards for everything.
What next?
Accountability from the managers.
Okay, next.
And honestly, I guess I said attire, but looking good. Professionalism.
Professionalism. Presentation.
Yeah, and we'll break that down, I guess.
All right, so checklist for everything. Paint the picture of what checklist for everything looks like.
So there's a opening checklist, a closing checklist, a midday checklist. If there's an issue with your service that an executive called out, you create a checklist to make sure that thing got done.
Okay, so you're basically leaving no stones unturned. If it happens in a daily basis or a weekly basis, there's a checklist for it. And what do you mean by specifications for everything?
To the point of there's a reason for everything. Every single thing in the restaurant, the lighting level, there's a certain level. For the lettuce, it's a certain length and a certain width. For the asparagus, when it comes in the door, it has to be a specific length or else it gets sent back, right?
Yeah.
There is no wiggle room for, if it doesn't meet the spec, it gets sent back and you are the squeaky wheel. Right?
Got it. In other words, standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of it's one thing to be handed standards, but what's that process of actually developing the standards look like?
One, you need the eyes for them. Right. So you need to develop eyes in people. And there's some people that naturally have the eye for detail and see those things. And so it's fostering that in the people that already have it and letting them speak and letting them actually vomit those standards, honestly, to the rest of the teams. And it's not in it. And the perception that becomes your culture, right? Of when something's off, you say something and you fix it versus, oh, that's just the way we do it.
Yeah, I think it's also just creating that safe space to say, this is how we operate. If you find something that needs to be standardized, that's wavering, it's not consistent, then let us know so we can create a standard.
Yeah.
Right? You need to open that two-way flow of communication. Once you're what about in terms of documentation of standards? How does that, once you create the standard, where does the standard live?
It's a good point. At Hillstone, it lived in a photo stream and some of their just basic.
What's a photo stream?
They had the iPhone photo stream.
Okay.
They would actually take pictures of it, or they'd force you to take pictures.
Yeah, a photo is worth a million words. That is probably the best way to standardize something. Is does it look like the photo?
Yeah. And they would say we rolled this thing out last week. In the next 5 minutes, take a picture of your next one that comes up. So there's no room for fabricating, and if you didn't do it, you get in trouble.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that in the beginning, but because we didn't have those resources to have constant bench of people. But yeah, we do it in SOPs, right? And that's where we're at right now with 3 restaurants, is clarifying what those standards are with everybody, and then the accountability of those standards.
Got it.
It's easier when you're the person, the owner's there to enforce them. Now it's spreading that.
Yeah, and you get some other challenges too, because you have technically it's 3 brands, but it's a different shell but the same business from what I understand.
Yeah, same service model, same management style, same food, honestly, and it's just a different shell.
Kind of reminds me of we'd had why can I think of in Columbus, Ohio. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I know who you're talking about, and I'm blanking on him too because I live there. So, Cameron Mitchell.
Yes, thank you very much. His whole business model is basically all of our restaurants are exactly the same chassis, same systems, different lipstick.
But I don't want to do that. The only reason, so we were strategic. Again, being in restaurants for a long time, I realized that it's actually pretty easy to get money once you have something that works. But the hardest thing is getting the good people, the good leaders. And so the strategy was to put money into, even when we rebuilt Germantown, put money into everything inside the building, i.e. the people, the systems, the food. And then you can, that's the riskiest thing. But once you have that down, then it's less risky to put money into the building, which is really like hire a good contractor and it's done. It's actually not that risky to build out a fancy building. But it is risky to put money into people.
Right.
So we did Germantown. We had an amazing opportunity with Park. I don't want to jump ahead. I'm just going to stay above. But like we acquired Park out of a really good opportunity where we just acquired more people, more of the thing on the inside. And we filled out our menu. So we kind of rounded out that everything in the building. And then once we were confident in the people, the leaders that we had, the number of good leaders that we had in the menu, then all of us, our investor included, was more comfortable putting a more significant investment into the third restaurant. Because the first two we couldn't scale, they weren't trademarkable, and so this third restaurant is one that we can actually create a new brand for ourselves and scale this because we actually have a trademark on it.
Got it. Yeah, bookmark that. Time standards.
We
covered
sorry.
Checklist standards, specification standards, and time standards is the next thing.
Time standards, there's a time standard for everything and making sure everybody understands that time standard. So whether it's how quickly a server should be or a table should be greeted, what time frame should you be in your section, when you should come back and do a quality check with the guest. There's time standards for lunch, there's time standards for dinner, there's a time standard for apps service, for desserts, for entrees, for a bottle of wine, for cocktails, and you track it and you make sure everybody knows about it, because if they don't know the time standard, they're not going to rush to meet it.
Yeah. So standardizing from everything has to this is our standard again. It has to come out this fast. I mean, I don't need to get any more into that. I think you explained it well. Accountability standards. What's that? Hitting
everything that we just talked about. And that's the biggest focus of our group right now. It's painting a clear picture of what excellence looks like. And if somebody doesn't hit it, telling them that they didn't hit it.
Yeah, what I'm curious, what's that process of accountability look like? If somebody's not meeting the time standard or the specification standard or the checklist standard, what happens thereafter?
I'll tell you the way that Hillstone did it and the way that we're trying to do it, because they're very different points in your evolution. An example of when I didn't do it was the specification for a crouton at Hillstone was the shelf life on a crouton is 15 minutes. You have to do new croutons every 15 minutes. And so when George Beal, the one we talked about, this is one of the 2 times I met him. He visited our restaurant. I thought the restaurant was looking spec. It was awesome. I think we were killing it. He last run through the restaurant, a very quiet man, just popped a crouton in his mouth, and I was like, oh crap.
It's been 30 minutes.
It literally was. I literally thought it was 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and you know the taste of 15 minutes compared to 30 or 45 because you do a taste plate every day. And I was like, shit. I just hadn't checked it in the past 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I went to taste it afterward, and it was probably 45 minutes. I'm like, fuck.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, that's one thing. It's a crouton.
Yeah.
Everything else was perfect in my mind, I'm thinking. And sure enough, a week and a half later, I get a call from a higher up and says, hey, your crouton was 45, is past the time standard. We're sending 3 executives down to make sure everything else is good. Because he said, if that one thing's off, then I guarantee there's other things off. So whatever, 2 weeks later, I had an executive chef and 2 other execs in combing through the entire restaurant, actually in a helpful way. They were actually had a positive attitude with me. They said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. This is what we need to fix. This is how you're going to do it. So again, from the very top, if something's wrong, address it, right? You don't it's not good enough.
So if you find one thing, the trigger is, okay, we need to go deeper because there's probably something else. And then when you find, so that one thing triggers a deeper look, and then then it's, okay, here is the standard and here's the strategy to get back to that standard.
Yeah.
So anything else we should know in terms of accountability? So that's what you're trying to get to, but you're not there yet. Why is that?
I think we don't have those layers of resources yet. Right now, because we just opened, for example, our executive chef is still playing chef in one of the newer restaurants, right? And we're training up the person to replace him, which is happening very soon. But if we find an issue, let's say in the kitchen, right, there's less people to follow up to make sure it gets done. And from an accountability standpoint too, the people that succeed are the people that take notes. Right. And so if we're teaching our team, for the people that's not natural to, this is how you become successful. This is how you just basic working stuff. I say basic, but it's not basic for everybody, right?
Yeah. What's going through my mind right now is like it's hard. We oftentimes compare ourselves to the Hillstones of the world, right? So what I'm thinking about right now is like, I am essentially a media company. I host this podcast. We have video, YouTube, and I look at some of the creators out there like Gary Vaynerchuk, and I'm like, that's how you're supposed to do it. I need to do it like that. And then I forget that he has an entire army of people behind him. And when you get to that point, you get better and better and better every day. You can't hold yourself to the same standards when you don't have the same bandwidth. You can do all you can do to get one step closer to that, but we have to remember that we got to start where we can and know that that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just basically, your resources don't allow you to send in executives in to like do a comb through of a whole restaurant. You're too busy opening your third restaurant. Yeah. So just have those goals, I think, is the big takeaway there. That like, it never settle for like good enough. Like, as you have more resources and people and cash flow, do it better.
Well, and that's what I tell the team. We may not fix it as quickly, but as long as we're calling it out, we'll get there faster.
Yeah. Okay. Last one, presentation.
Or just being really tight with how food goes out and caring a lot. Right. And going back to photos, we do that too. It's probably one of the best tools that I recommend for everybody is post spec photos to some form of photo stream, because the people that do know what it is are pushing the standard. They can say, wow, that's, great layers on that sandwich. Toast needs to be toasted more. Awesome. Compliment, opportunity. Right.
Yeah. You said professionalism before. So is this idea of presentation food and people?
Yes. Well, and I think it's mostly people. Food, yes, of course. But people is looking the part, right? Whatever the vibe is of the restaurant, making sure you actually hit that presentation look, because this isn't a personal job, right? You still have a culture to present and a story to tell. So whether that's, again, the music is just as important as how our managers dress and how they do their hair and how they like. If we allow tattoos, great, I allow tattoos. If they do, I always say, I love purple hair as long as you do it well.
Right. So it's basically, I think the key to this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you have to document your standards and get people to agree and sign off on what the expectation is. Because if you start critiquing people after employing them and not getting them to clearly understand what the expectation is, now you have a lawsuit on your hands, right? You can't just start telling people that they need to change, and like you can't like fire them for not looking a certain way when you didn't clearly spell out what the standard is. Yeah. So you have to have these standards documented. You have to make sure that you're communicating these standards to people before they get to work, so that when they are deviating from the standard, you can tell them they're off standard. They've deviated. Personal. It's not personal. Yeah. This is our brand. This is what you agree to. And if you're not holding our standard, and we've told you and we've given you warnings, and you consistently deviate from the expectation, the standard, now we have terms, and we can terminate you, and you can't sue us, right? Because a lot of people get in trouble for that. They don't clearly define the standard, and then you're what's the word? Unlawful termination. Yeah. So I think that's a really important thing. You got to document it, because you can get yourself in trouble if you don't.
Yeah. And it's just, and really that's important from a liability standpoint, but again, just the follow through of constantly talking about your standard. That is one thing I also learned from Hillstone, is you're always talking, right? If you're always calling out a standard, always calling out, hey, make sure your shirt's ironed, make sure your hair is more tidy, make sure we get trimmed, or make sure your shoes are a little more fresh, then it's not personal. It's like, oh, that's just who you are. That's just how the company is. Right. It's not like, oh, they're picking on me. Right.
Okay. We covered a lot there. That was great. So these are the standards that you throw. This is the Hillstone systems that you roll out. 18 months later, talk to us about that process, that 18 months, what were your biggest challenges during that first 18 months?
I think just replacing myself to do all the things required of restaurants nowadays.
Replacing yourself. Say that one more time.
Replacing myself as much as possible to do all the things required of restaurants, while also placing these standards and Hillstone systems into people that have never seen them before.
Okay.
So just like building the house
Okay.
was the thing, which required nitpicking day after day after day. Leaders that had been in their roles for a long time, getting them to see the benefit of these things when they'd been doing things for 10 plus years. It's like, well, why do we need to change this? It's been working ish, right? And yeah, and sometimes there's a hard line, say written in the contract, at the end of the day, what I say goes, right? Of course I'm going to get everybody on board, but 98% of the time everybody was on board regardless. But there was 2% of the time where I said, I understand your disagreement with it, but this is changing right now. You can't argue with me.
Yeah.
It's in paper, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Again, the importance of documenting it and getting people to sign and agree on what the standard is, so that if they're not meeting the standard, you can fire fast and hire.
But again, that was 2% of the time. We have an amazing team that were open to it, but
Right.
a lot of times it took time. Like, hey, do it this way. I don't understand, but I'm willing to do it. And then a month later, like, oh, now I see why.
Okay.
And so just showing the long-term perspective to people that haven't been there before, but now, 5 years later, we have a team of people that have seen the long-term, and they're advocates for it now. So it's so much easier.
So it's just consistency over time. I think I can't help but think of Danny Meyer's constant gentle pressure, right? It's like, don't lose your shit. And people are constantly going to drift and deviate from the standard. Your job is to gently push them back to the standard until they start to see and realize the why. And when did you start to catch traction with this? Like how long did that take before hitting the 18-month mark?
Probably 6 months.
6
of
months?
constant, like me being there.
What was the
most
next
of
challenge for you?
the time. Making money.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get into the black?
We were in the black after month 1.
Okay. What were the changes, the fine tuning that you did to increase that percent profit?
I mean, the benefit is we did come out of COVID, and so we were able to. We paid a few rock stars a little bit more.
Okay.
Right, and so we allowed them to fulfill their whole capability. And then me and the chef owner at the time, we did a lot ourselves, right? So, he's extremely productive.
So you were taking on a lot of the labor expense.
Yeah.
Got it. How long did it take you to start relieving yourself from those responsibilities?
8 months to a year.
When did you actually officially open Germantown?
November 2021.
So 3 years from opening your first location to getting to the 18 months goes by, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Then another year and a half after that, you open your second location.
Yes.
So let's go to that point where you hit your goal, 300,000. What happens?
So the structure of so we hit that mark. We get the equity that we had said that if we hit this mark, we get. And at the time, 2023 was a heyday of a time for restaurants. And so we were killing it, right? We were at top margins. And
you can see my face, right? I want to ask a question, but I'm wondering if I can ask the question. What is a good, target if you're somebody who wants to do something similar in a similar agreement? Like, what's a good, reasonable equity target to
so
hit?
for us, again, my contract didn't start as even the starting line of being a partner until we opened. So there's a whole year and a half before that I was just showing that I had the capacity to do it, which I think we did.
Yeah.
And so there was already confidence built up to that starting line. And then after a year, we got a small percentage. After a year is just time-based. After a year, I'm going to get a small percentage.
Meaning profit or equity?
Equity.
So a year was a time base, and the 300,000 was another milestone or another unlocking of equity.
Yeah. So we had 2 points of time base. So we had a small, a first small percentage after time, and then 2 profit points after that. And so we hit the first profit point, we doubled our equity, and then the next profit after that, then we got a third more of it, and we kind of reached our max before we decided to renegotiate.
Can you share benchmarks in terms of what is a reasonable amount of equity to negotiate?
I feel like it's different for everybody.
Well, yeah, I think that's important, but I think you kind of spelled out what you bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
So ask yourself, if you're listening to this, do I really bring that to the table?
Yeah. We got 10% after 1 year, and then after we hit the first profit mark, we get 20%, and the max right now we have 30%.
Okay. And how many partners are there?
4 total, and there's different percentages for each partner.
Got it. When did you guys develop the partner Up Hospitality Partners name?
Well, technically, me and my business partner had Up Hospitality Group.
Got it.
And we really liked the name.
Yeah.
And it was available. And then when we got the third restaurant, we finally became a group.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about all these different names, and we're like, we really like our name.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, it won't be ours anymore, so we turned into Up Hospitality Partners.
Got it. So 3 years from opening to getting to your second location. Any other lessons around Germantown, getting it to that point where you can get it on its own so you can start focusing your attention on the next project? I don't want to skip over any key points of transformation.
Yeah, I mean, we were honestly overstaffed with amazing leaders. We had a really fantastic GM in place that had been with me since the dream days. We were able to bring in an ops manager, somebody who came up from bartender all the way up to ready to be an ops manager, and he was gung-ho and excited. Who's now our general manager at Germantown Cafe. And so we had 2 really skilled, motivated people to help lead. And then in the kitchen, we were set and solid, and again, margins were going well, and we were still affordable, right?
Yeah.
So people, the guests were happy, team was happy. We were paying out profit sharing, 10 out of the 13 periods.
Yeah, now you're starting as you're talking, you're triggering memories in our conversations. I know profit sharing was something that was really important to you. You wanted to figure that out. Where did you land with how to structure that?
We worked with Rudy Mick, who we still are working with, and what I realized when I worked with him is it truly is unique to each individual company and how you want to do it. But we allow people, once they reach a certain profit percentage, then it kind of opens up the door for profit sharing. It's once we reach 15%.
So you have a goal.
Yeah. So once we reach 15%, then profit sharing is on.
Okay.
And then once you pass 15%, then you get a certain percentage of our net profit. If you reach another percent, even better, then you start tapping into, you get a percentage of the gross and the net. And so the more profit percentage we have, the more gets paid out to the team.
I am making a note to do a workshop with Rudy on how to structure profit sharing.
It's different. We went through a lot of, back and forth of deciding what's best for our group, what's best for our investors, what do we expect versus what we're willing to give. So there's a lot of.
I think it'd be cool to kind of break down what are the variables? What do you consider? What are some different how do you approach this? Because I think that is a great stepping stone on your way to sharing equity, right? You don't have a lot of equity to give early on, but as you scale, as your cup starts to overflow, you can start to, once you find these amazing people, you got to offer something to keep that talent. The talent pool is getting thin. I don't think a good paycheck is enough today. I think people want more security,
Yeah, I agree. That's again, one thing that I want to tackle. I really want to start focusing on once everybody kind of sticks in their places is how retention tools, honestly, and that makes all of our lives better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's built into your brand, Up Hospitality Partners, right? And I think that's a really smart,
I like the partner piece too.
Yeah, man. So it's clearly there. So so you kind of started sharing how you structure the profit sharing. So the next question was, how do you find these people? Keep in mind, folks, Sean was doing this from 2021 to 2024, arguably one of the most grueling, most difficult times for attracting and retaining staff. You were bringing people on and executing these goals during one of probably the most, I can't think of a more challenging time.
Yeah.
I
think there's 3 pieces to it. One is compensation in 2 ways. There's literal compensation in monetary sense. There's compensation from an education standpoint, arguably just as important, if not more. And then there's the structure to make sure you follow through on what you say you're going to do. So the structure is EOS. I literally finished the book 2 weeks before we opened Germantown Cafe. And so when we had our full ownership meeting, we implemented it, just finish the book, do it. Which has been wonders. We still probably have some opportunity of how efficient those things can be.
So you said those 3 things were education, compensation.
Education, compensation, and a structure to make sure you get those things, you follow through on what you say you're going to do.
Okay, so and you're using EOS to do that, and that is essentially here's our 5-year plan, here's our 1-year plan, here's our quarterlies, here's our monthlies, here's our weekly. You have rocks, and you're using that L10, level 10 meeting structure to hold people accountable.
Yes, but we could do better at the accountability piece.
Okay. I have the blessing from the folks over at EOS to teach essentially and to have conversations in community around EOS. And this is something that I want to start doing in the network, just for the record. You being distracted right now?
Yeah, we might need to move or transition locations if that's possible.
Yeah. Want to wrap up this thought and then we'll...
Yeah.
Okay. So EOS is huge. I would love to create space in Restaurant Unstoppable Network, whether that be quarterly or annually, just to get restaurant owners interested in implementing this, just to come together and help each other. And I'm actually connecting with Mark C. Winters, the author of Rocket Fuel, in like 2 weeks. So I'm hoping he can help me find an implementer who specializes in restaurants to make that happen. We can pause now. We can relocate. What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network. Yeah, so we're back. We just pulled the first time ever mid-recording, relocate to the corner of the restaurant. It was actually pretty seamless. We did that all in probably 5 minutes. Moved everything. So when we left off, we were talking about three things. To retain people, I think you were saying you need to incentivize them beyond money. You need to incentivize them with education. You need to incentivize them with, was it compensation? And then you need to put like accountability in place, or is it
a structure to be able to follow through on what you say you're going to do?
Yeah. And where we are on the timeline right now, you got to the point where Germantown's on its own. You put all these people in place, and I asked you, how'd you keep those people during the hardest time in the economy? And now you're focusing on opening Park Cities, where we are on the timeline, 2024, about a year ago.
Yep.
So try to wrap your mind around where we were. I think we were talking about EOS too. And the point I want to make is I love EOS, and I think that this is one of those key things. If I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow and I want to teach this, like that. So where's your mind right now?
So our mind was we had already actually signed an LOI for the third this current location to be our second.
In 2024.
In 2022?
2022.
End of 2022. But within like literally a month, before when that was just finishing up, we had got the opportunity to acquire Park Cafe.
Okay.
And Park Cafe was very similar to Germantown Cafe in terms of clientele, in terms of complimentary menu set, and we knew their standards were high in terms of service, and so it just aligned with our original strategy of develop the inside the restaurant versus instead of the actual building itself.
Yeah. And
so we were able to. It was just a perfect fit. The owners were ready to retire. They were coming out of COVID, so they didn't have a whole lot of structure in place. They had stepped it back in to be the operators. And they purposely didn't put a lot of structure in. And so what they didn't have is what we had.
Got it.
And what we were looking for, they already had.
And you already had the staff.
Well, and they already had the staff. So they had a menu that we really liked and was complimentary. We really excelled in brunch and lunch. They really excelled in dinner. And so we could literally just plug and play the menus to really round out our menu set. But also they had a really great staff at the time. And so they hadn't really used technology. They were stuck in not stuck, but they had the old ways. And so we were able to bring in the technology, the organization, the system to hit the standard they already knew, but more efficiently. So the team was actually pretty receptive.
Okay, that was my next question. Like, this is the first time you ever go, this is a great strategy too, being someone's exit strategy, right? But now you're taking a culture, you don't want to scare these people off because, you need them, right? What advice do you have for moving into an organization, taking up, taking your culture with you, your systems with you, your technology with you, as somebody who's working in one of these restaurants that's being acquired, like that's a lot of change.
Yeah.
How do you approach that without scaring people off?
I think the first thing that we did that was really effective is that we shadowed the current owners for a little over a month. And so we were there every single day, kind of the key people, me, the other owner, the GM. And so we showed the team that we are willing to help. We're here for you, not to ruin anything. So we gained some rapport with them. And then we started to just show them just little hints of what we're going to implement. Like, wow, that would be nice, right? Once they knew that we were good people, we were for them. We showed them some of the changes that we wanted to do. And they were receptive of those changes. And so by the time the month came, we were just in a better situation where most of the team trusted us. They knew that we were here to help, and that we were here to make their job easier. So just basically reducing potential friction. Okay.
What about approaching that whole exit strategy, like on paper? Like how did you structure that, like that buyout? Like any advice on how to approach that?
Well, we were fortunate because the current owners are still the landlords, so they have a vested interest in our success.
Okay. Yeah.
It was also a legacy brand. It was their baby, and we didn't want to change that. We just wanted to make it what it was and even more of what it
evolve
was.
It into the 21st century.
Yeah, so they're also, if we ask for help, they're willing to provide it. And so they structured a deal that we thought was worth the brand value. Some brands aren't worth what they think it is. We thought theirs was, and they came in, we thought at the time, at a reasonable number. And then same with rent. They came in right around market, whereas in Nashville right now, things are growing dramatically. So a lot of the other landlords we had talked to about other opportunities had set a rent, assuming some of the crazy growth that had been happening, which I get, but it also was unsustainable, like just unattainable realistically. And so they were just reasonable.
Yeah. So it's been a year. In that past year, reflecting on just Park Cafe. Thank you. I knew that was wrong as soon as I said it. Park Cafe. What have the biggest challenges been for you?
Growing revenue for periods that they hadn't been doing for 24 years, right?
Okay.
So they'd been dinner only. They were the landlords themselves, which saves a lot of cost, right?
Yeah.
And so we did the financial model that in order for us to make money at this restaurant, we need to do 2 more meal periods. And honestly, the 2 meal periods that we are very good at.
Lunch and dinner?
Yeah, lunch and brunch. Okay. Right? And so we're like, okay, this should happen. And we were coming off of the heyday of 2020.
So you added brunch and lunch.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Within like the first quarter.
Got it.
So 2 full menus that we were pretty confident in. And we were coming off of 2023, which was the heyday. We assumed that the rate of improvement, because the neighborhood's a nice neighborhood, we assumed that rate of growth was going to be much higher than it was. And 2024 for everybody was tougher. And then just getting the awareness out that this restaurant that's only done dinner for 20-something years is now offering something else. We're still, right now is when we're really, really addressing that and getting the PR and just the word out besides word of mouth and emails and text to our current guests. And so there's still a lot of people that just don't even know that we're open. Yeah, so you're still, this is more realistic of, what it actually takes, that 1 year, 2 year runway to like get that loyal following, to develop those relationships, to get your regulars. Where were they in terms, like when you took over actually, like where were you when it was 100% your business, you owned it? Like what was the first 2 months in terms of, were you in the red or black? The first 2 months we were in the black.
Okay.
And then about after the first quarter, 2024 started to get pretty hard for everybody.
Yeah.
And so we, dipped. It was kind of in and out. It was like red, black, red, black. And at the end of the year, we did come out, we did come out in the red.
Well, you're also increasing labor. Right?
That's the thing. It's like before when they were, when the owners pay themselves, they could pay a very modest salary because they're collecting. One, they're more mature, but one, they're also collecting rent. Right. So the rent went up significantly to market. Right. So it's reasonable, but it still went up dramatically from the P&L. In order to hire managers, there's a certain rate you need to pay, and especially in Nashville, you need to pay a certain amount, especially at that time. But also, if we plan on having 2 restaurants and we were working on a third, you can't be there. So we can't do what we did with Germantown and have us incur. I can't play GM as long. Right. And the chef can't pay the chef as long. So again, building the house, which
Right.
costs money.
Right. And then the other variable too, cost of goods at this time, 2024, is when it starts to take off. So I mean,
And we didn't increase prices because we didn't want to scare people off from the old brand.
right.
So we tried to create efficiencies on the back end to keep the prices there as long as possible.
What kind of efficiencies were you focusing on?
Toast with tech, being able to like know which product mix we
Toast
use.
with tech?
Sorry, tech using things like Toast, Ovation,
Okay.
Razzie.
So I think now is actually a good time for us to kind of dive into what what your tech stack is today. I know you're somebody who you get very into this sort of stuff. So you landed on Toast. You're using Ovation.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you using?
Slack for communication. We were using a really cool tool called Get Speedback that integrated into Slack, where you can provide internal reviews on a daily basis.
Okay.
We stepped away just because honestly our focus moved to other things, but I want to move back to it.
Mm-hmm.
We use lots of things. We use Razzie for our accounting currently. What else? I'm literally forgetting right now, but we have a lot. We have a lot of tech.
Yeah.
But I would say we use Spot Hopper for our website, which is restaurant focused.
How have you been with I've seen that coming up more and more. I mean, there's Pop Menu, there's Spot Hopper, there's Owner.com. I know you shop around.
Yeah.
What was it about Spot Hopper?
Honestly, price and functionality.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a very affordable price because they focus on restaurants, and so they're building a team right now, so they can leverage some economies of scale. They can provide a lower price. And at the time, we didn't have an event software. We do use Triple Seat now, so that is another one. But we didn't have an event. We were doing it through email, which just, as we got busier, just became very hard to manage. And so they had a tool that made it much more organized. It was included in the price, and so that was a huge value add for us.
So Spot Hopper has a tool to do event management.
Mm-hmm.
And does that integrate with Triple Seat?
It does not. No, we just stopped using their event piece of their software. We still pay the amount. Triple Seat now.
So you're no longer using Spot Hopper's
Functionality.
event functionality.
Yeah.
You've replaced that with Triple Seat.
Yeah.
What did Triple Seat provide that Spot Hopper was missing?
They actually provide marketing as well. They provide incoming leads. Their organization is just much more efficient, and I am not the leader of Triple Seat. I've actually never logged into it, but we have a handful of other people that are taking the lead on that. But the BEOs are more comprehensive. Again, there's inbound marketing, so it actually drives sales.
So it's a marketplace. It's not just the framing to manage.
Yeah.
Got it. Is the management?
It does things automated. Like once you set it up once, it like auto-populates. It just makes the event manager's job or the manager's job much more efficient.
Got it. I see you're also using OpenTable. Why OpenTable and not Resi?
I mean, I've gone back and forth. At this point, we honestly go back and forth. Right now, Nashville seems to be an OpenTable city. If people are going to go on reservations, they're not going to Google, which a lot of them do. They're going to OpenTable. That's just their habit.
Got it. And
they actually do have account representatives now, which has been very helpful. Like, it's one thing that Uber does, that we chose Uber over like DoorDash and other places. You have a specific person that you can reach out to. You can call them, you can text them, and they will reach out and say, hey, let me maximize your efficiency. Let's sit down for 30 minutes. And they know us over the years. And so just having a person to provide customer service is helpful, not to call on some random customer support number.
Got it. So I'm clicking through on your website. I'm on Germantown Cafe. I'm ordering online.
We use Bbot.
Okay, I was going to say, it doesn't look like I'm on Toast right now. So you're using Bbot for online ordering?
Yeah, we got very lucky with Bbot. We were the first customer in Nashville for them. We were onboarding when I was at Dream, and then I left, and then it kind of stopped. It was very intense over at Dream. There's a lot of moving parts. And when I reached back out, before they got acquired at Germantown, we were the one person. So we basically get their services for free, and we got a really great deal.
But with them no longer being a company, I think their technology was purchased by Toast.
DoorDash.
DoorDash, thank you. Are you afraid that it's going to not evolve with the times, or you're eventually going to have to move off of it?
Well, I mean, with DoorDash, they can evolve with times, right?
Okay.
And it was the most flexible at the time. That's why we did it. They were much more customizable, and they can. And I've tried to even explore other options, but they're the only software that allows us to do. We use Bbot for everything off-premise charging, and so we have a window at Germantown. We can put in a service charge on every single to-go order, which we reallocate to the kitchen, which is a retention tool.
Okay.
But no other software allows us to do that. So like the Otter doesn't allow you to do it. If you put a service charge on that, you need to put the service charge on everybody dine in. So I guess I should say Otter doesn't even allow you to do a service charge. Toast online ordering, if you put it on like to-go stuff, you need to put it on the dine-in stuff. Bebot allows you to do service charge only on to-go and not automatically on dine-in or any other like functionality.
So you're upcharging to-go orders for
service charge, yeah.
So what is that accounting for, the service for? Is it to cover the cost of like packaging and stuff? Convenience.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the cost of doing business for convenience.
Okay. So you're able to basically have two separate menus that tie to the same POS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So any other, like, in terms of before now where we are today, you only here 2 months now?
Yeah, 2 months in Brentwood.
In Brentwood, your latest location, which is Karrington. Karrington, thank you, Rowe. I'm all over.
I like Karrington though.
Karrington, Rowe. Any like points of evolution worth talking about? Like, how did this galvanize you? What were the specific unique challenges with this location?
That's the challenge of going from 1 to 3, right? So once you get to 3, your systems have to be uber clarified, and what defining excellence has to be very clear, and then you have to bring everybody up to that level of excellence. They just have to have the knowledge of what it is. It's because a lot of times we think this is clear, right? I've been doing this forever. Like our standards are clear, and then you're not there for a week or 3 days, and you come back and this standard drift. I interpreted it as blank, but that's definitely not our standard. So
right.
Even our best people,
Yeah.
sometimes misinterpret it. And so we're trying to create our standards as black and white and as clear as possible.
What are you doing to combat the drift in standards?
Working with Rudy Mick.
Okay. So I think something really important to point out here, as things are getting tighter, you're choosing to invest more. It's counterintuitive, right? Some people would be dialing back. You're outsourcing a controller. You're outsourcing, what would you call a Rudy Mick?
I kind of call him like a fractional COO or chief people person, I would say. That's probably more of an accurate example.
You're working on people systems.
People systems, yeah.
And then you also have Bob
and
Sloop.
Operational systems, but there's a little crossover there.
And you're also working with Bob Sloop, who's an accountant and a controller, bookkeeper, and very well versed in the world of restaurant technology. So I know you haven't signed on officially. I don't know where you are exactly. I don't know what you're willing to divulge now. How'd you find these people?
Restaurant Unstoppable, baby.
Oh, yeah. So Rudy was referred to me. I discovered Rudy in Nick. I can't think of his last name. The book A Slice of the Pie. Nick. It will come to me. But in the book A Slice of the Pie, Nick Cirillo talked about his experience with Rudy Mick and how Rudy helped him kind of create this framing for cultural growth. For like I think I'm pretty sure that was Rudy Mick that worked with him. And then Bob Sloop is somebody who has been a part of Restaurant Unstoppable Network, just a huge contributor. He's worked with, I think, Garces, Jose Andres, or
it was I forget his name right now.
Anyway, a veteran of the industry, well versed in Restaurant 365, Restaurant Systems Pro, Razzie. So you're like, that in order to keep going, you have to start shedding responsibility to people. You're building the house, right? Take that, what I'm sharing, and kind of round off my train of thought.
Well, again, just simple tasks when you have one restaurant you can do in 20 minutes, but when you have 3, that 20 minutes turns into 60 to 120. And as you get 3, you have one problem. That one problem turns into 4 or 5 same problems. So again, your time just gets contracted, and you just got to focus on where you're driving the most value. And so right now, again, I'm outsourcing. I'm trying to start to outsource the admin, where again, somebody who makes $18 to $25 an hour could do, right? A lot of the work that I enjoy and that I can drive business into the restaurant is not worth me, uploading an invoice. It's worth me going to do a podcast, or more specifically meeting the owner of another business that orders catering every week, even though we have an event manager developing that relationship. Or I enjoy the creative behind marketing and social media and to tell the story, because one thing that we're focused on right now is telling the story of hospitality partners and the individual brands, because as everything gets congested and we're getting marketed 24/7, the thing that sticks is like a clear story that people can like draw back to. And so that's a focus that I really want to start working into, is defining who is our brand, who are our individual restaurants. And so when people think I'm in the mood for blank, or somebody says a memory that they have, they think about us. Oh, we do need to go back there, right? And so defining that branding I think is more important than I originally realized.
So when you have 3 different restaurants that all have 3 different brands, what is your strategy to know, like, so people know, like, this is an Up Hospitality Partners restaurant?
Well, we're defining that as we speak.
What's the strategy for that?
But right now is the road that we're going down right now is, there's, especially in Nashville, when there's so many, it's such a growing city. There's a lot of restaurant groups coming in, new. We're focused on, we are
legacy brands,
and we're like basically carrying on these amazing recipes that, like, they've been around for 20 years for a reason. They're delicious, right?
Yeah.
But we're putting this new fun wrapper, right? And fun doesn't mean always young either. It just means maybe more community, more block parties, things that still fit the brand. And so we're digging into what made these restaurants great and putting a highlighter on those things. So
yeah, injecting them with new systems, new technology, new schools of thought,
new
culture.
activations that highlight those brand attributes.
You say new activations?
An example is like Park Cafe. When you go there, there's people that have been going there for 20 years. They go there 4 days a week. They all know each other. They go, hey, Jim, hey, Sarah, how's the business? Like, it's what restaurants were and should be. And so instead of us changing, we, for example, created a quarterly event we called it Neighbor Day. And we do live entertainment, fun interactive games, drinks. We have a VIP band for regulars. It just gives them a reason to interact even more.
What do
to build
they get as a neighbor? What do they get that others don't? The VIP band.
A free drink, and we're gonna build on that like offering. But right now it's mostly a free drink and
got it.
A little extra.
You just see them. I think the most important thing is you're seeing them as somebody, like, that's people just want to be seen and recognized and valued. I want to respect your time, man. We got 15 minutes left. I want you said a couple of things earlier today. You said the future is the suburbs. Get into that.
Well, for our group specifically, right? Personally, at this point in life, I have 2 young kids. We have restaurants in our strategy, again, of building the people within the restaurant. It doesn't make sense to go to another city. You just dilute me personally, but then also our managers. And so we want to, again, work in concentric circles, as you have said in our past. And downtown, there's just so much congestion. I wouldn't even consider it competition. There's just something new opening every single week. And there's so many people, because it's such a growing city, people with great disposable income, just growing in life differences, are moving out to the suburbs.
Yep.
Right?
I think there's something else that's worth mentioning too. I don't think we really took into consideration with what's it called, the engineering, civil engineering. When you look at towns today or communities today, it's like rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of just houses, streets and houses. Historically, if you looked at communities, there was always a center of town. There was, in that town, a restaurant and a church, places to come together, to commune, to be with your people. And at some point along the way, I think we just forgot how important it is to have a city center or a community center. And as towns grew, we grew away from those centers, and now all these like burbs all around, and there's literally no center of those. You might have a community of like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes. Thousands of people live there, bigger than towns were 200 years ago, and there's no center.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how we kind of just lost sight of the significance as we moved into the 21st century, into the late 20th century. Like, we just didn't realize how important centers are. I think there's huge opportunity to go into those centers and to be a place where we like every community needs a place to go be with its neighbors. We've lost that.
Especially if you have kids.
Next time you fly into a city, Notice how many homes, just oceans of homes, and they're 5 miles, 10 miles away from the closest center. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We need to spread out. You know, like restaurants are always on the same road. They're so far away from the centers. As I'm saying this, what are you thinking?
I mean, I completely agree. You know, again, with somebody with kids, we still try to get out. You try to escape. I wouldn't say more, but the want and need to escape the intensity is higher. And nowadays, it's expensive to do childcare. It's expensive to go on a date, and so you don't want to spend extra on gas. You don't want to spend extra time, spend extra on a babysitter. So, like right now, my wife and I still go downtown for most of our date nights, which is 35 minutes, an hour. You spend an hour in travel that you're paying somebody else to watch your kids, because we have Olive Garden around us. We actually enjoy a night out at Olive Garden every now and then for nostalgic purposes, but. You know, we're not one of these people yet, but we have people with Rivians, Range Rovers, like G-Wagons, stuff like these people are out in the suburbs. Do you really think they're choosing to go to Olive Garden because like that's where they want to go? Like it's like, no. So there's a lot of opportunity out in the suburbs, especially the growing cities. You have to be strategic about it, as we're learning, when you go out to the suburbs, but we think that is definitely an opportunity. But it also allows us, again, managers, the furthest they have to drive is maybe 30 minutes, you know, to most of the suburbs from any location. So it's a reasonable amount of time to drive for a job, and you can continue developing them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't pull back some layers. You talked about the future. I know a lot of what you believe. You believe we need to lean more on technology as we go into the future. I know you're shopping around for a quote unquote enterprise solution that integrates with Toast. I know you've been using Razzie. I know you were about to onboard with Restaurant 365. You chose not to. Maybe that might still be on the table in the future. And I know you're also interested in Restaurant Systems Pro. So, give it to me honest, man. Like, what are you weighing when looking at these companies? What matters to you the most?
Well, Restaurant 365 has the most money, so they could potentially keep up with the times the best, which is a concern, a real concern.
Why is that a concern?
Because if you're not keeping up the times, then you might be missing opportunity. It's an opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Because we need to keep operating more with less.
Right.
And I think they have the potential to allow us to operate more with less. The downside is you're just a number, you know, and I experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
You know, it would, and I have to balance if just being a number, if I can be self-sufficient enough or care enough about that, you know, maybe I utilize every aspect of their software, which is a real consideration. Restaurant Systems Pro is the most personal, and they actually seem to care people to people, and I experienced that through the network, the Restaurant Unstoppable network, because Fred Langley, the CEO, shows up. He shows up in person, in real life, asking real questions, and so that's their. Do they have the same sales ability or skill set, which hinders their success, in my belief sometimes? Do they have you know, the ability to grow? Do they have the ability to, you know, prioritize what part of their system is the most important relative to their customers? Maybe, maybe not. But I just know that they probably don't have like the same amount of funding that Restaurant 365 has.
Right.
Razzie is growing as well, but they just through experience, there's limitations in accountability. Honestly, so every system has its strengths and its weaknesses, and we're just trying to decide over the next 5 years which one is going to be which one is most important to us in this stage.
Right. You know, so it was about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I was driving across the country and this book landed on my radar, Power and Progress. And it was basically, it's an anthropological approach to technology over time and how, like, what's the story whenever there's a new technology, like what's our relationship, humans' relationship with that technology, and like what's the common narrative? And the common narrative is whoever owns the technology wins. And in a world where we are no longer in small marketplaces, like fragmented marketplaces all over the country, but we're now a national marketplace or a global marketplace, the people who win big. You know, in other words, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And when we give up that much a control to one organization, if there's one clear winner and they own a giant share of the marketplace, who ends up losing is restaurant owners. And hearing that kind of had a huge influence on why I pivoted my business model to be a listener-supported model and not a sponsor-supported model, because whoever has the most money wins at the end of the day. That is a common narrative that they pointed out in that book. Whoever has the most money, i.e. whoever controls the technology, i.e. control the narrative. If you don't believe me, look at Meta and fucking Google. We are completely ignorant to how much control those organizations have. And when I push back on social media and marketing, and I say marketing is the bane of existence, it's specifically that type of shit where we're just, think about how much your life hinges on Google today. Email, search, navigation, documents, Google Word, Sheets. It's literally seeped into our lives. And we're like, this is great. It's free. But we don't realize is how much data and power. Yeah. And now that AI is coming around the corner, it's scary. And I think we really need to be cognizant of that. And we need to be, as consumers in the restaurant industry, restaurant owner of technology consumers, right? Where are we giving our money? So to your point, one of the reasons why I'm so excited and why I try to get behind Fred Langley and Restaurant Assistants Pro, because I think they're amazing people. And I think that it's important that we balance out that control. And I don't want to go chase the money to be able to say go with this company. Yes, Restaurant 365 is the most recommended, but they also have the biggest budgeting and marketing dollars. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I try to stay neutral. Fred and Restaurant Assistants Pro have been huge supporters of me, and I feel confident that if we grow Restaurant Assistants Pro, he will continue to evolve that platform. It's just a matter of getting the awareness out there. And like to your point, he shows up, and that white glove like service, once you're a member, from what I understand, is like unparalleled.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm a blank slate. I care about it. I know more, I would say, than the average restaurant tour, just because I nerd out about it.
Yeah.
But I've experienced issues, with 2 of the 3 big providers, as well as experienced their strengths. So I'd love to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Try on that glove.
So we'll see what happens. We got to wrap it up, man. I want to respect your time. I think we had 11:45 hard stop.
Sure.
Yeah. Anything we haven't discussed? Now's the time to get it out.
We've talked about a lot. I think right now, because you and I have talked about this in the past, it's really important for us to figure out what is a sustainable model for restaurants. And there's not just one. And so one thing that I'm trying to think through is how can a restaurant that is a center, i.e. provides more service, provides more activations, it's higher touch, because higher touch restaurants, maybe not the highest touch, but like that middle ground of high touch restaurants is, I personally think that it provides some of the best good for society from a personal relationship standpoint, but that is one of the hardest ones to operate because you're not getting the best margins. It takes still the same amount of effort to operate. And so I'm constantly trying to think through how can we make more money, honestly. And so how do we attach more things within our restaurant group, whether that's real estate, whether that's doing some
vertical integration,
some product mix or some CPG, some other entertainment of some sort, something that people already associate with higher margin and attaching food and beverage to it. It's frustrating for restaurateurs, and it's detrimental to society how hard it can be, right?
Yeah, I think Angie's is a really cool concept to follow closely out of Arizona. I don't know if you remember that interview that I did.
Is that the
Tony
nice steak, nice lobster?
Yeah. So it's Angie's Prime, Angie's Burger, Angie's Fresh. I think those are the 3. It started with Angie's Lobster, then it went to Angie's Prime, now it's Angie's Burger. But the thing is, what they've done really well is they have an overarching brand that's front and center, Angie's. And then underneath that, they do one thing really well. So it's Angie's. You have an expectation of brand of, that's Angie's, their quality is great, and the price is great. The way they make the prices great is they vertically integrate the supply chain. He owns the pier in Maine that he gets his lobster. So because he's able to vertically integrate all those things, he can keep the cost down. He also owns the farms where he's going to be sourcing his beef, right? And then he uses all the extra cuts from Angie's Prime to do Angie's Burgers. So he's vertically integrating all of his concepts. But I think that idea of finding an overarching brand that you associate with quality, and then underneath that brand, like, so for you, it would be like Up, burgers, up salads, up
boutique hotels.
Yes. So now you're okay. So you have your full service up. Now you have your QSR, your fast casual. So you can use your brand to hit people at different points in their day, right? But you have people who are loyal to up.
Yeah.
So I think that's really smart. And then also the vertical integration of it all. So up at the grocery store, having up construction, up supply chain. Like, I think those are the future concepts of it's meeting your customer everywhere they're at and using an overarching recognized brand that is associated with quality. I think he's doing it really well. I would be surprised to see how that evolves.
Where it goes,
yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, that's exactly what I want to do. I'm just impatient. So
yeah.
I think it's the balance of staying patient, knowing it's going to happen, and again, having that framework and then just working really hard to get there. And we're just in the working really hard stage.
Let's wrap it up, bro. What's one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that's uncommon and makes you truly unstoppable?
Honestly, just true care for our people.
The mission statement is to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry. We're going to transform the industry by transforming one restaurant owner at a time. How have you personally transformed?
I've been a lot less reactive. I've been a little more proactive, or at least I've been able to press pause on my emotion and then being able to think through and actually say something that's more effective.
If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy. What those 3 pieces of wisdom be? I've read that faster than anybody else because I know you know the question. You've probably been thinking about it.
I'd say give love.
1.
I'd say care about people more than money.
2.
Money still matters. Do your best to make it.
Fiscal responsibility. Absolutely, man. This has been a lot of fun, dude. Obviously, we could have you call somebody out. You already mentioned a few names. I took note. But who do you respect and admire and believe I should make an attempt to get on the show?
Well, I'd love to hear from the people that we mentioned earlier. Chris Florzak with the Rise Restaurant Group out in Dallas. There's Jeff Lee and Matt Gottlieb over with Western Edition. They have a handful of restaurants between Dallas, Houston, and I think they might be going to Austin soon.
I'm headed to Dallas, Austin, and Houston in 2 weeks.
I mean, you can literally do all of them. They're fantastic people. I can connect you with them.
And that's Western Edition?
Western Edition.
I'd love them.
And their CEO. I haven't heard anything from him, but he has a great, lineage as well. And if somehow, some way through those connections, you can get George Beal or on the podcast, that would be historic. You'd be. I don't even think like the top. I don't think anybody's gotten him on.
Man, I like to think my mission. I like to your point, I choose relationships over money. I choose purpose over money. And I think when you exist to do the hard thing, the right thing, it's harder in the short run, but over time, it gets you. People see that, And I think there's a level of integrity with what I'm trying to do that I hope it influences, Jeff, Chris, and Matt. And I think that when you circle around the person in the core of it enough times, and you have 3 points of remove 1 point 3 different ways, it tends to earn trust. So I'm gonna give it a go. And thank you for calling those people out. And how can we connect with you? If we've really enjoyed today's conversation, if we want to continue to connect with you, reach out to you, maybe work for you, what's the best way to connect?
You can contact me anyway. It's one of my things I love doing most is connecting, teaching, listening, learning. Social handle is Sean Daniel Lyons. Lyons spelled Lyons. Email is Sean SEAN @up. U as an umbrella, P as in Paul, hospitalitypartners.com. And my cell phone. Some people have said that before. I'll follow their lead. 630-276-8450. Shoot me a text. I really don't answer voicemails because I get a lot of junk message.
There's one source I think you forgot to mention. A good way to get in touch with you.
Oh, Eric Cacciatore.
So Sean is one of the most active members in Restaurant Unstoppable Network. We get together. I host coffee with Eric every other week. Sean joins a lot of the mentoring sessions, the workshops, the power hours. The goal is to literally create this network of people like Sean, past guests, the tools and services they've recommended, and to create space to come together and just share knowledge and to go further together. And I mean, thank you for all of your support, man, for believing in me and being a supporter of what I'm doing. My vision is more Sean Lyons across the country coming together on a regular basis, weekly, daily, to support each other. And just thank you for seeing the value in what I'm trying to do.
Well, thank you for having me. This is maybe a premature interview because you interview the best. So,
dude, you're the best.
I appreciate it.
No, I'm happy you said that because, like, I think you have this mentality that, you know, you're like, when I invited you to be a guest on the show, you're like, I don't know if I'm ready. I'm not where I wanted to be in my mind when I was a guest on your podcast. I'm not doing what I want to do. And I think you need to give yourself a lot of credit, man. What you've done and when you've done it in one of the hardest, most turbulent times in the history of restaurants, and to scale to 3 locations, to be in the black with all those locations, to be creating opportunities for others, to be taking over brands and growing culture, dude. Like, you're pushing the envelope, and I feel like this is just the first of many conversations we're going to have. Every couple of years, I'll be coming back, man. And when you're at 20, 30, 40 locations across the country, I'll be like, I knew that little fucker when he was trying to negotiate a partnership deal with this other guy. And, like, we shared the story, man, and the story's only going to continue to share itself. So you're doing amazing. It's an honor.
Now I get you to move to Nashville.
Yeah. All right, man, this is where I say I literally cannot do what I do without people like you getting open, vulnerable, honest, transparent. There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thank you.
Cheers.